Hey guys, it's been a while since I made a weird movie review, so I had this idea to make a countdown list of, 15, 20, or 25 of the weirdest movies I've seen so far. So I'm gonna make these short little videos summarizing a handful of movies at a time first, and then when I'm done with it, I'll just put them all together and have one big countdown video. This is just a way for me to stay consistent and produce short videos in between my longer form videos, which obviously take a lot more time. So here we go. Today I will be talking about Zardoz, Possession, and Ghostdad. Zardoz. Zardoz is a science fiction film directed by John Boorman in 1974. Zardoz has recently gained notoriety for being a so bad it's good movie, or something to just put on and get high and laugh at, but in my experience, the experience of watching Zardoz is so baffling and so disorienting. I remember the first time I watched it, I was so confused by what I was seeing that I just sat there going, what the f***? What the f*** is happening? Wait, what the fuck is that? What the f*** are they doing? What the f*** is this? What? What the f*** are they wearing? Because of the way the story is told. On the surface, it seems more complicated than it actually is. But in reality, Zardoz is a science fiction story about a future dystopian society in which a small community of elites with advanced technology attempt to secure their little paradise from the outside world, which is a wasteland ravaged by pollution. Unfortunately, the wasteland is inhabited by masses of poor people, and the elites hatch a plan to keep the population under control by genetically engineering a race of humans known as the exterminators to literally run around and murder these poor people. But then one day, one of the exterminators ends up in the elite's paradise, and this is when the plot of Zardoz really begins. What makes Zardoz so strange is all of the creative decisions that were made, the costumes especially, where people run around in bright red diapers and people are wearing colorful towels on their heads like wigs. The women are wearing these super low-cut shirts that almost show their nipples. And then the men dress exactly the same way, so there's this kind of androgynous thing going on. The fact that the movie opens up with a floating head that's wearing a towel again and a mustache that's drawn on with a Sharpie, the floating headstone, the dialogue is so strange and off-putting.
The gun is good.
The gun is good.
The penis is evil.
I have studied our social, emotional substructures for 140 years. I am innocent of psychic violence.
The editing can be really confusing and disorienting, and there's so many scenes where it's just hard to figure out what's actually happening and nothing is explained, at least verbally, until the very end. And just visually, it has a very dreamlike quality to it. The nature of the technology in the film makes it hard to know what time period it's set in because they use technology from different eras in time. So at first I just assumed that Zardoz was set in some parallel universe or something like that. Also, the fact that the main character has amnesia for most of the movie. So he has no idea what's going on. So you, as the viewer, that's basically your experience of what's happening. You feel like you have no idea what's going on. It's just all of these random things happening with no explanation and no context. And then, of course, you have the name Zardoz, which just sounds like some made-up nonsense. I think this is a film that takes at least 2 viewings to fully appreciate. It's definitely easier to follow on the second time. Zardoz. Give it a shot. Possession. I remember we had this movie at my local movie rental when I was a kid. I was always curious about it because I assumed that it was a horror film or a vampire film specifically, but I was too afraid to get it because I thought it would end up being overly sexual and I didn't want to watch it with my parents around. Now I'm actually glad I didn't rent it because this movie is so totally not appropriate for kids. It is an extremely adult adult film. Not in the way that it's sexually explicit, but it's just the subject matter and the tone and the atmosphere. This is a story for adults only. Period. In fact, I think that if a kid tried to watch this, they would just get bored and turn it off within the first 10 minutes. Possession is one of those movies that blends fantasy with reality in the way that it kind of puts you in the shoes of someone that's losing their mind. Possession is not just a movie, it's an experience for sure. It feels like you're sharing the experience of having an emotional breakdown with someone, and that's what I believe the movie is truly about. It's about the feeling of everything falling apart. And the title, Possession, what are they being possessed by? Is it mental illness? Is it trauma? Is it jealousy? The title leaves room up for interpretation, and I believe that reflects the movie as a whole, where the whole movie is up for interpretation. Possession starts out as a drama about a marriage that's falling apart, and there's domestic where the husband is towards the wife, who seems to be having a mental breakdown, and the movie as a whole just descends into madness. The most memorable scene to me is when the wife is walking home with the groceries, and all of a sudden she starts flipping out, and she's screaming at the top of her lungs, and she's throwing groceries all over the place, and she's throwing herself around and contorting, and it just goes on and on. It's incredible. It's so disturbing, but you can't take your eyes off of it. Possession is one of those movies that starts out somewhat normal, so it feels grounded in reality at first, but then in the last 15 minutes for sure, it goes completely off the rails into full-blown horror, and the ending is very abstract. It's definitely up for interpretation, which I appreciate. It's one of those weird movies that's not just weird, it's very, very unsettling right from the jump. Just the way that it's shot, the way that it's edited, the way the characters are behaving, everything about it is so dread-inducing, and that creates this overall atmosphere. I think Possession really relies on the strength of its performances by Sam Neill and Isabella Adjani. They truly are the movie, they make the movie, and their acting is impeccable here. So if you want to get creeped out and anxious and disturbed and shocked and dumbfounded, Possession is the movie for you. Thumbs up.
I can't exist by myself because I'm afraid of myself. Because I'm the maker of my own evil. Because I'm...
I remember when I was a kid. Have you ever seen a dying dog? One of those old dogs that comes to die under the porch of the house. At the last moment, it yelps in terror, as if it's seen something real.
Ghostdad with Bill Cosby. I bet you weren't expecting to see this here. Ghostdad with Bill Cosby has come back on the radar recently as a so bad it's good movie, but when I saw this movie, I wasn't thinking, oh haha, this is so bad. I was thinking, oh my god, this is so damn strange. What the f is happening? The reason why it ranks so high for me is because of the fact that it has this veneer of being a run-of-the-mill family-friendly movie. It stars Bill Cosby, who at the time was almost like the Black Tom Hanks, where he was seen as the good guy or as America's father figure. It's crazy to think about that now in light of what was really going on. And that also adds to the strangeness of Ghostdad. Ghostdad reminds me a lot of Troll 2, where it's just a bunch of random things happening. Nothing really makes sense. The dialogue feels like it was written by aliens. Everything about it is just so strange. It almost feels like the script was written as some sort of absurdist, meta, postmodern prank on Hollywood, where it's just taking these conventions and doing something that's just mind-boggling with it. So I think maybe on paper, Ghostdad made more sense because it really actually is just a pile of cliches. It's, okay, single father, check. Not spending enough time with his kids. Check. Has a conflict with his job. Check. Then they added in the ghost/guardian angel thing, which was a popular trope at the time, so check. Then they added the element of the ticking clock for drama, so check for that. But there are so many moments in the movie that are just so freaking bizarre. And to top it all off, there's a twist at the end of the movie that makes no sense whatsoever. And it actually basically kind of invalidates the whole point of the movie, or like the whole premise of the movie. So it makes it so that the title Ghostdad is actually completely inaccurate, and it just adds a whole other layer of insanity to the whole story. Because of the fact that this was a failed family movie, and that it's full of all these cliches, and that it stars Bill Cosby, who turned out to be this depraved sex offender, watching this movie with all of that in mind just creates this aura of surrealism, almost like you're watching a movie from a parallel timeline or something like that. So if that sounds interesting to you, then check it out. Ghostdad, 1990.